should think about, because given the work that you have done around the world since 1950, I think that a proper recognition and organization of the Rotary Club is something that is certainly worthy of consideration. I think the important thing about the Nobel laureates is that a little bit deeper analysis, and you will find that 45% of them came from developed countries. I don't know if that necessarily means anything, but the opposite side of that is that 20% of them came from third world or underdeveloped companies. And then 19 of them were institutions of peace. In fact, organizations like the Red Cross have won a Nobel laureate a minimum of 3 times. But then what has also been said here this morning is that there were 4 individual people from the continent of Africa, and particularly South Africa, that have won the Peace Prize laureate, and that's a unique record of anywhere else in the world. And you wonder what makes South Africa so important in creating these Peace Prize laureates and these warriors of community and happiness. So looked at the happiness index. I'm sure all of you have heard about that. And you know what's interesting about the happiness index, particularly in the light of some of the things that we have said earlier about how great the weather is and the wonderful warm people. The majority of the countries that benefit from having the title of the happiest people in the world are actually for some of the coldest climates. Mainly Scandinavian countries. They don't have this beautiful wildlife. They don't have these some of the typical challenges of demographics that we face. And the other thing is that they're very mature democracies, proper democracies, but ones that could be described as more socially leaning than anything else. But when you look at the category of what makes them winners in terms of the Peace Index, it has a lot to do with the fact that they are nowhere near these conflict zones. And a lot of these conflict zones you will see are in Africa, Central and East Africa, and very much in the Asian countries, whether it's Greater or Lower Asia. And their winning these peace prizes is really based on something that we all know, the basics, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And at the very bottom, you just look at things that are basic to life. The safety of individuals, their health, making sure that they have food, a safe place to sleep. It's such basic things. And these are the things that people speak of when they talk about how well their government works. You want to attribute these wonderful attributes of life to something. And when people are at peace, when they're feeling safe, when they think that their government is working in their interests, when there's very low or no levels of corruption, you find that they form friendships that are lasting, that are positive. They form partnerships that build and extend that sense of peace and happiness beyond themselves. And their view of themselves in terms of their self-esteem, well, it's something that just grows almost from an osmosis point of view to other people. And then some of them actually reach probably the place where some of these Nobel laureates reach, where they started thinking of, but can't we make the world better? Can't we take these principles, at least from my grandfather's point of view, which were strongly steeped in his Christian religion, can't we take some of these learnings and pass it on to the world? And that's where you actually get into some level of self-actualization. Given the fact that you've got these 4 Nobel laureates from South Africa, what's interesting is this particular map, and it was provided by the Mo Abraham Foundation. It's a map of what is called NEET. NEET stands for young people between the ages of 15 and 24 who are not in education, not in employment, and not in training. In my own personal life, I've got 2 young people, 26 and 23. And I can't imagine their lives and what they would think of themselves and where they would find themselves in that Maslow hierarchy if they were not educated, not employed, and not trained. A young person that has nothing to look forward to, and no one to care for their well-being. What's interesting about that previous map that we saw in terms of countries that are in conflict and war, and what we're seeing in this multicolored map of Africa, is that the darker red, orange portions are populations that are nearing 40 to 55% of young people that are categorized as NEET. Young people who are at risk. And my message to you this morning is that this particular statistic, as it gets worse, as you have more red zones, I think you're going to find that the transition from those red zones to the transition to war and a lack of peace are going to follow very closely. The other challenging thing about South Africa, or Africa in particular, is when we look at the global population growth. You will see that Asia still has the largest number of people, but that's probably not going to be for long. It is predicted that by 2035, Africa will have the most populous group of people on Earth, 1.8 billion people. And the majority of those people will be people from that category that we just talked about, NEET. The majority of countries on the continent will be led by people who are not educated, people that haven't enjoyed the security of employment, and people that have no particular training or skill to do what they need to do in the interests of their countries. And that should be something that is absolutely horrifying to all of us. So when we think about the topic of global peace, what we know when we look at Africa in particular, and your previous chair, Mohamed Gamon, recognized the importance of bringing Africa to the Rotary way of thinking, is that this NEET population and its exponential growth is something that would destabilize this continent even more than it's already destabilized. That having this large population of NEET is not congruent to anything near the components of the happiness index that we talked about. Having this growing component of NEET doesn't get us anywhere closer to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And at the end, having a large growing population of NEET can never lead to peace. Your organization globally, and particularly in this country, I know you have a focus on youth. I know you are looking specifically at that population. But my message to you this morning is that whatever the Rotary Club is doing on the continent of Africa, I think those efforts need to be accelerated. I think you need to partner with other people. There are quite a number of programs that the Chief Albert Luthuli is working on, specifically with youth, as well as the National Dialogues Foundation that I chair, with 3 of the foundations that were spoken about this morning. I thank you for your time, and I appreciate your interest.